Okay, good afternoon everyone. This afternoon I will be discussing the different solutions to your assignment number 1. So it's about hydrocarbons, alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. So in here you can see the answers to the first question, alkanes. So in here we have the number of carbons, different number of the number of carbons, and the prefix. What is the general prefix to be used? The IUPAC name, and then the molecular formula, condensed formula, structural, and line or skeletal formula. So first, we have number 1 to up to number 10. Number of carbons. So the prefix to be used is, for number 1 is met, number 2 is et, number 3 is prop, number 4 is but, number 5 is penta, number 6 is hexa, number 7 is hepta, number 8 is octa, number 9 is nona, and number 10 is deca. So for the alkanes, the IUPAC name for the one carbon chain would be, because you have prefix met, so the IUPAC name should be methane. Then for the second carbon chains, by the way, alkanes meaning, it means that you only have one single carbon bond. Okay? So there is only one single carbon bond or carbon chain. So let's continue. For 3 single carbon chain, you have the prefix prop, so the IUPAC name should be propane. For 4 carbons, you have butane, 5 pentane, then hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, and decane. Sorry for that. That should be decane. Because you have 10 carbon chains, so that's deca for the prefix. And for the alkanes, IUPAC name, it should be decane. Now let's go to the molecular formula. So for the molecular formula, what is the general formula for the alkanes? Okay, so you can see here, if you have 1 carbon atoms, it's connected to 4 hydrogen atoms. So in short, if you have 1 carbon, but if you have 2 carbons, that means 2 carbons is connected to 2 carbons each is connected to 3 hydrogen atoms rather. So the total is 6. So the general formula for this would be Cn, meaning how many the number of carbons, and then H, 2n, 2 times n, plus 2. Example, if you have 2 carbon chains, so you will replace the n with 2, H 2 times 2 plus 2. That would result to C2 H2 times 2 equals 4 plus 2 equals 6. So that is the answer. Now for the propane, you have C3H8, butane C4H10, pentane is C5H12, hexane is C6H14, heptane C7H16, octane C8H18, nonane C9H20, and then decane C10H22. Okay? Nakuha, class? Next, the condensed formula. The condensed formula is you just expand the molecular formula. For the single carbon chain, for the alkanes, it should be the same with the molecular formula because isa naman siya ka-carbon, di ba? But if you have 2 carbons, you will distribute equally the number of carbons. So in this, meaning you have 2 carbons, like this one, C2, then each carbon is connected to 3 hydrogen atoms. Okay? That is for the 2 carbon chains. For the 3 carbon chains, it would be C3H2 and CH3. Notice that the middle carbon chain, it has only 2 hydrogen atoms. I will explain to that later in the structural formula. Why is that there are only 2 hydrogen atoms connected to the central carbon chain. Then, for the 4 carbon, for the butane, we have C3H2H2 CH3. So the same, the middle carbon chain has only 2 connected hydrogen atoms. And then for the pentane, we have CH3 CH2 parenthesis subscript 3, meaning there are 3 CH2 molecules for this central carbon chain. Okay, if you expand that, it would be like this: CH2, CH2 and CH2, meaning there are 3 molecules of CH2 in this particular part here. And then the end chain is the same as the first carbon chain, which is the H3, and so on and so forth. So in this one, it has 4 central for the hexane, then heptane, octane, nonane, and decane. Okay, so let's go to the structural formula. For the structural formula, remember that carbon atoms has 4, it can be connected to 4 atoms because it has 4 valence electrons, right? So since it has 4 valence electrons, it could be connected to another. It can share its outer electrons, or the valence electrons. It can share into 4 atoms with +1 charge. So +1 charge atoms there. So in this case, because hydrogen atom has +1 charge, so the carbon atoms can be connected into 4 hydrogen atoms. So the structural formula would be like this. So always remember that carbon always have 4 bonds in order for it to be saturated. Okay? Next is the ethane. The structural formula for the ethane would be, because the one chain here is connected to another carbon chain. So this is a double carbon chain. So the end part of the chain is already -1. So it's reduced to 1. So instead of 4, it would be 3. So that is CH3, CH3. Okay, nakuha. So nakuhaan man siya isa ka bond nga hydrogen atoms. So ang iyang bond is connected to carbon. Okay, next is the propane. Propane has 3 main carbon chains. So 1, 2, 3. Now the first carbon chain is connected to 3 hydrogen atoms, and then the middle carbon chain is connected to 2 carbon atoms only. As I mentioned earlier, because the 2 carbon bonds is already connected to the first and to the last carbon chain. So it still has 4 chains or 4 bonds. 4 bonds ang gyapon siya. Okay? Since this is a covalent bond, the the electrons are shared between atoms.